Which celebrity's death actually made you cry? Steve Irwin and Alan Rickman. John Candy. Fred Rogers. He was genuinely the nicest man to anyone who ever met him. Edit. I'll admit to tearing up at everyone's responses, too. I'm glad he impacted everyone's lives so much. It has been a great read, even the few snide comments which I'll respond to by quoting Fred Rogers. You've made this a special day just by your being you. Chris Cornell. Leonard Nimoy. I still miss him. When I heard he died, I was just speechless. Then I found out his last tweet and it broke me. I could barely read it to my wife and still tear up writing this. A life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved, except in memory. Lap Leonard Nimoy. Jim Henson for sure, maybe not a traditional celebrity, but the Muppets, Fraggle Rock, man, I'm still sad thinking about his death. Gene Wilder. I remember exactly where I was when I heard the news. I was sitting down in a sandwich shop and it was broadcast on the store radio. I heard it, but it didn't really register at first, but as soon as I got home it hit me and I had to lie down and cry for a few minutes. According to his family, while taking his last breath he was listening to Over the Rainbow. Such a poetic way to depart, I don't know how to describe it. May he rest in peace. Carrie Fisher and her mother Debbie Reynolds when they died within a few days of each other. Debbie passed away the very next day after Carrie. So sad. I wasn't sure how close. Debbie told her son she wanted to be with Carrie and died hours later. Mother and daughter were very close. It must have been really hard on Carrie's daughter, Billy. She was very close to both of them. Sam Lloyd. Can't watch Scrubs without feeling caught up. Was listening to the Blanks cover of Hey You the other day and I just froze. Never had a celebrity death have any affect me in the past. I didn't know he died. Terry Pratchett. Scott Lynch wrote a blog about it that beautifully describes what his loss felt like to fans. There is no past tense of Terry Pratchett. Web link. Brittany Murphy. I used to watch her movies all the time with a friend of mine who is also now deceased. I still get sad watching her movies. That actor from Star Trek, Anton Yelchin. Crushed by his own car. This is the one for me. He was just a kid, so talented, and seemed like a really good guy. I'm my mom and stepfather's only child too, and I think that colors my perception of it, imagining their loss, and remembering the look on his mother's face when she spoke about him. It was something I often thought about growing up, for example of how wrecked my parents would be if something ever happened to me, and I imagine that must have been playing through his final thoughts as well. He voiced the main character in one of my children's favorite cartoons and I honestly tear up a little whenever the character speaks to his mom. In August 2019, I was in LA and had some time to wait for a friend who was driving in, so I went to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, but not before dropping in a tourist place across the street. The guy in the tourist place said keep an eye out for Anton Yelchin's parents. I was like, really? Why? Because they're there almost every day. And sure enough, they were, huddled together on a bench next to his gravesite. I respectfully kept my distance, but damn, that was heartbreaking to see. I've been meaning to see Love and Tosha because of that day, but haven't yet worked up the courage. Anthony Bourdain. I'm a chef and his impact on pretty much everyone in my industry is immeasurable. Kitchen Confidential is easily the most impactful book for most all of us. The most amazing way of translating and speaking about food/chef culture. His shows had an amazing way of highlighting other cultures and the way food brings people together no matter where you are from and showing that a lot of our differences are purely cosmetic. That day was easily the quietest day I've ever spent in a professional kitchen in my life. Everyone was just silent and upset. Edit. Thanks to everyone who shared their feelings about him. It's crazy to me to see how much influence he had in so many people's lives of all walks of life, even if they aren't a part of the culinary industry. It's a credit to who he was as a person. For a lot of the comments here, I just want to say really quickly. If you're suffering from depression or having suicidal thoughts, please, 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 talk to someone. Friends, family, therapist, phones lines, anyone, everyone. You matter, no matter what you may think, and you matter to others around you. Please open up and talk to people. I cried over River Phoenix and Kurt Cobain when I was a teen. Long time ago now. As an adult, I will admit to having to wipe my eyes when I heard Chris Cornell died. It was just such a shock. So many of my musical heroes from my youth were already gone. I'd really thought he'd be one of the ones who made it to a ripe old age. Made me want to wrap Eddie Vedder in cotton wool and make sure nothing happens to him. Stan Lee. I have been reading his comics since the late 80s. He has always been a part of my life, and his philosophies really impacted my growth as a person. I remember watching Mallrats and being amazed, because who the hell would think to have Stan cameo? Besides one of my people, I guess. I know it's not all rainbows and puppies, I know about the issues with Jack Kirby and whatnot, and I get it. But Stan was the face/figurehead of comics for a long time. I was so glad he was able to live to see his characters properly brought to life. Those of you old enough to remember the older attempts will understand. Given his age, and the reports, I hope he understood it all, at the end. Excelsior. Freddie Mercury. It was really hitting hard at that time in my life, and I still remember when I heard the news in the car stereo of someone giving me a lift. We were both in tears, and it was one of the saddest moments I had ever had back then. Not to mention when I had a chance to go to one of the first Queen concerts after that, Feet. Paul Rogers tour. When Brian May played Love of My Life all alone out there on the catwalk, I could not hold back the tears, still. Edit. Wow, thank you for all the comments and awards. I did not expect this. Hand over mouth. Bowie had me bummed pretty hard, but Robin Williams was so unexpected and tragic that my wife and I toasted him, and I did shed a couple tears. 2016 just killed me. George Michael, Bowie, Prince, and Carrie Fisher. Each of them too early. Each of them a genius with heart and soul. Don't forget Alan Rickman. Dolores O'Riordan. UPD, thank you all. She's in my heart. Chris Farley. The song that Adam Sandler made about Chris Farley makes me tear up every time I hear it still. Heath Ledger. Dated Bowie. They played Starman during a tribute show to him on the radio the day after he died. I was pulling into the car park at work as it came on. I waited in the car to listen to the end, and so I could compose myself afterwards. I'd lost my dad a year or so beforehand, and it just really hit me. Alan Rickman. That was just such an unexpected one, and I genuinely cried when I read it. He was such an amazing actor and human. It's still sad he's gone. Same. Such a phenomenal actor and a great guy. He kept his cancer diagnosis private, so it was such a shock to all of his fans that he was even sick. I'm still trying to figure out how to make Siri sound like him. Robin Williams and Chester Bennington. Linkin Park got me through the darkest parts of my life and kept me alive. My dad died by suicide 10 years ago when he just came back into my life, and I lost my entire world at that point, and LP and other bands helped me through. Chester's death rocked me, and so did knowing I would never get to see them live. I saw the tribute concert they did for him. I remember vividly during Numb I Think, they called out to the audience, "I want you guys to sing so loud Chester can hear you." And I broke down. I could hear the audience start sobbing. Every lyric hit me before his death, and hearing "Leave out all the rest" or "Numb" makes me realize he was telling us his story the whole time. Being suicidal, you listen to stuff like that and you understand it on a different level. Robin was just a pure soul who made me and millions of others laugh, all while hiding such pain and an illness he couldn't control. It's a bit like how we say in Narcotics Anonymous, what happens when the person who kept you from relapsing relapses? It was such a cold and empty world after they left us, and I never even met them in person. Who cares if one more light goes out? Well, I do. If you haven't seen it, go watch the Chester Bennington tribute concert. There's a point where the soundtrack to Numb starts, and when it gets to where the vocals start, it's silent and the crowd realizes and starts singing the words. Makes me cry like a bitch every time. Grant Imahara from Mythbusters and Grant Thompson, they made me get into science. Edit, words are hard. I'm not going to go digging for it, but I remember I didn't cry at his death. I cried over a tweet from Carrie Byron that she posted not an hour later, I believe. It wasn't long or thoughtful or beautifully written. It was something like, I was just talking to you this morning with a picture of him, and that was it. It felt like she was broken inside. I'm angry that you're gone. I want you to dare me to eat a bug again. I would eat all the bugs in the world to have you back. Carrie is a strange woman, and has had her issues with the Mythbusters cast, but she genuinely liked Grant. Edit, she said that on an Instagram post, not Twitter. Grant was one of the best minds on television and off. A tragic loss for many. One of the rare individuals out there to have both a keen intellect, a practical engineering and scientific curiosity, and the on-screen presence and charisma to bring knowledge to the masses. There were so many years in him to teach. Truly a tragedy. Steve Irwin broke my kid's heart. Naya Rivera. Knew it was unlikely she'd survived being missing in a lake, but it still stung when they announced finding her. Was still hoping for a miracle. The whole thing was unbelievably tragic. Jim Leahy. Chester Bennington. Neil Peart. Selena Quintanilla. I was just a kid when she died, and I still remember how much I cried when my parents told me she died. To this day I feel this overwhelming sadness when I hear the song I Could Fall in Love. Weird. Patrick Swayze. Alex Trebek. My immigrant family used to watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy religiously. He was always on TV when I was alive. And hearing how he died really broke me. Just on his back porch swing with his wife as he went. It made me really think that one day, it will be your last day. And what you wear that day, everything you do, what coffee or breakfast you had or whatever, is going to be your last, and that's it. And just the way he went out was so beautiful. Edit, thank you all so much for your comments and the awards. I went to have a beer and this blew up. To clarify, I am still alive. I meant to say, my whole life he's been around, but I apparently need some English lessons, ha ha ha. And to the person who had a problem with me saying my immigrant family, I want to clarify. I come from a family of immigrants who worked hard their entire lives and continue to, and they worked very hard to learn English. And game shows is what they would watch to help them learn. So these shows remind me of being with my family too. I hadn't heard how he died. What a lovely way to go. It's always better to go on your terms than suffer in agony. Makes me feel bad for dementia patients. Forgetting everything is pretty up there for worst way to die. He had pancreatic cancer though. Going out on a porch swing is a really good way to go out when you are like that. Eddie Van Halen. Christina Grimmie. I was a huge fan of hers since the beginning, having followed her on YouTube since about 2010. She was only 22 when she was shot in the head and killed at her concert by a crazed fan. Her brother jumped the guy, and the killer ended up shooting himself in the head in the struggle. I was wondering if someone would mention her. Right there with you, sometimes I still tear up when I listen to her music. Such an amazing person she was. Bill Paxton. I really enjoyed him. He was very well liked by those around him, and I was looking forward to seeing him in more movies. Stevie Ray Vaughan. Tom Petty. Prince. Avicii. Mac Miller. Kurt Cobain. He was a really big deal when I was a teenager, and his music was what first got me playing the guitar. Cameron Boyce. MF Doom. Robin Williams. If it makes you feel any better, it wasn't just in his head. The Lewy Body Dementia Association, LBDA, clarified the distinction between the term used in the autopsy report, diffuse Lewy body dementia, which is more commonly called diffuse Lewy body disease and refers to the underlying disease process, and the umbrella term Lewy body dementia, which encompasses both Parkinson's disease dementia, PD, and dementia with Lewy bodies, DLB. 165. According to LBDA spokesperson Dennis Dixon, the report confirms he experienced depression, anxiety, and paranoia, which may occur in either Parkinson's disease or dementia with Lewy bodies. In early PD, Lewy bodies are generally limited in distribution, but in DLB, the Lewy bodies are spread widely throughout the brain, as was the case with Robin Williams. 165. Ian G. McKeith, professor and researcher of Lewy body dementias, commented that Williams's symptoms and autopsy findings were explained by DLB. 166. He was going to deteriorate for the rest of his life. I'm happy he found peace. George Michael. Steve Irwin. That man was so passionate about wildlife, and it's good to see his wife and in these past few years his children keeping up the fight. I've been thinking about this one a lot since Bindi had her little girl. Steve would have been the most amazing granddad. I remember Terry talking about how Steve would get up early with the kids, and she'd wake up to the sounds of laughter coming from the living room every morning that he wasn't carting them around the zoo. I could imagine Bindi waking up to Steve just hanging in her house, doting on the grandkids, teaching them everything he knew. That family is missing a lot for having lost him. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.